What's up, guys? Adam back again with RV Returners, joined by my partner in crime, Chris. So we're coming at you with our first set of set reviews. This is Fire. It's an element that I've always liked since I started playing the game. I know Chris likes it as well. So we're hoping that it gets some good stuff so we can play it more in tournaments.
Turns out it did, so.
Yeah, so let's get into those cards really quick and see what they got.
Yeah, man, let's dive in.
All right, so first up we got Orin. He's a Final Fantasy X forward 4 CP AK. Category 10 forwards you control gain Brave, and then for tap, choose a blocking forward. It gains plus 1,000 power until end of turn.
I think he's fine. He's a guardian, and he gives all the guardians Brave, which he'll fit in that archetype. Other than that, not really much to say. I think he's kind of vanilla.
Yeah, I mean he's the best Orin, right, that they printed, but that's not saying too much. I think we've said this before, but I think Orin deserves an S at some point. Really, he needs something.
Yes.
It does it's worth noting, I guess, that this gives like gold wings and stuff Brave, but I don't think that's good enough. Obviously, it's forcing the Guardians thing, and I don't think that's going to be good enough either. Which I think it's going to be really hard for this guy to find a slot in a deck. So I don't think he's going to see too much play.
I think he'll see about as much play as Cyan does.
Yep. But in title, pretty decent.
Great! Monster in title.
Yeah. So next card is Aegis. It's a 4 CP AK again. He's a Warrior of Light. Job Warrior Light forwards you control other than Aegis gain Brave. And then when Aegis enters the field, you may play one forward of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field.
Best fire card in the set, hands down. This guy does it all. He lets you get, and not the fact that it's not color restricted is huge, and the fact that he's a Warrior of Light and he gives all the other Warriors of Light Brave is just absolutely massive. And I've been playing that deck a lot. Dude, he does it all. Just absolutely does it all. And him into Soul, which we'll talk about later, that is such a powerful play.
Yeah, I think he's really good. Like you said, the fact that he's not color restricted makes him even better. I think his second ability is better than his first ability, but that's not a bad thing. Like, I think obviously giving the Warriors of Light Brave is good, but I think the fact that he can cheat in a 2-drop is what makes him really good. And that's why I think he's going to see play outside of just Warriors of Light. Obviously, Soul's the best target, which we'll talk about later. But I think this guy's insane, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, all the surprises you can drop, like, surprise Soul, surprise Paul, surprise Sid Reigns. Like, there's just so much you do there.
Yeah, it's like the Dexter meme, right?
Exactly. Surprise, motherfucker.
Next up is Red Mage. It's a 2 CP 4K. When it enters the field, if the cost paid was included ICP, your opponent discards a card, and then tap, choose one forward, deal it 1K.
The discard's cute, and the 1 CP is cute. The 1K I mean is cute, but otherwise I don't think he sees play.
Yeah, I think it's not bad, but you have to have like you have to pay this guy with 2 backups in order for to get the card out of your hand without overpaying.
Exactly.
Yeah, dealing 1K is okay. I guess if like you're playing Fire Earth or something with Dottaluma, or maybe you're playing like some 3-color jank like Fire Ice Earth FF6 or something. I don't know. I think I'm stretching it, honestly. I don't think it's that great either, but it's not terrible. I don't think it's going to see much play. Next up is Frit. So this was our spoiler. He's a monster in all situations. He's a 2 CP 4K, and then when he's put from the field to the break zone, you can search for one card named Ifrit and put it in your hand.
I think it's relevant. This whole cycle of cards where we'll get to the other elements when we'll get to the 2 other ones there are. He's a 2-drop, which plays very well with a card we just talked about, Aegis. Plays very well with Opus 5 Godot. The fact that he gets you a relevant summon, there's a lot of Ifrits you can choose from. I think the card's just really, really good.
Yeah, I think he does a lot of good things. I'm worried that the Ifrits aren't good enough right now for him to warrant a lot of play. But as soon as they are, he's obviously really good.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's the case with the other ones as well, which we'll talk about when we get to those elements. So I think he's going to be really good. I just don't know if he's really good right now, if that makes sense.
No, it certainly does.
Yeah, and then next up, we got the Ifrit of this set. So it's a 4 CP summon, EX burst. Choose a forward, deal it 7K. If it was a burst, deal it 8K.
I actually like this card. I think people were a lot harsher on it was they were a lot harsher on it than I think they should have been. Fire up to this point doesn't have an EX burst that does 8K to something by itself, and I think that alone warrants consideration. And then with K Tuna, it can be a 9K or an 8K from hand. I think the card's good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it got more hate than it deserved. It is, like you said, the first fire summon that does 8K on burst, which is relevant for sure. And its name keeps it pretty relevant as well too.
Exactly.
I like it. I'm not sure exactly how much play it's gonna see. It's really gonna depend on how good the Ifrit package itself is and how much EX bursts are relevant in the meta, which I think they will be.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Next up is Varuno. Yeah. It's a 2 CP monster. It's Fire's flip monster. When a forward you control deals damage to your opponent, Varuno becomes a forward with AK, power, and brave.
This is another card I like. This is actually, I think, one of the better cards Fire got. The fact that it's so easy for Fire to deal damage. Like on turn one, and I know we talked about this on Breakfast Club, you could drop that and drop Tifa, and boom, now all of a sudden your opponent's staring down 2 forwards and you paid 4 CP for it. I think the card has a lot of really neat tricks, and granted, yes, it being a 2 CP monster and also, will be a 2 CP forward does open it up to a lot of removal. But I think for the value you get out of it, you're fine with them using that removal to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think people are sleeping on this card a little bit. I think where it's going to be hard, though, is finding room for this card. Because I think Fire has to run a lot of forwards, and now their summons are getting kind of mucked up too with what they want to run, because you want to run K-Tuna. And then I think Fire kind of has to go a little big right now, so it needs a good amount of backup, so it's kind of hard to find room for monsters. But I don't think it's hard to turn this guy into a forward. It's an AK with Brave, which is really good. So I think he's good, and I think people are underrating him. I'm just worried that he's not going to find slots in decks. I think that's my biggest worry about the card.
Yep.
Next up is Black Mage. He's essentially Opus 1 Black Mage with a different category.
Sounds good. Moving on.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, that's only relevant in title, and if you want to run 6, yeah, not much to be said.
Yep.
Next up is Saz. He's a 4 CP EX Burst backup. When he enters the field, you may search for 1 fire summon and add it to your hand.
Man, I wish this card did more. It's pretty vanilla. Yeah, it's an EX burst that gets you a summon, which is nice. A fire summon, which, I think in title it could be okay, because title has a few, they have good fire summons for 13. They've got the 9 CP Bahamut, they've got Brynhilder. So I don't know. I think this card's very average. It could see play as maybe like a one of in some decks, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think I think I've said this before too. Like, the best target for this is 7 CP Phoenix.
Yeah.
So I think if you're running decks that center around that, this is okay. But you also have to run other targets too. I think you just can't only run 7 CP Phoenix.
Yeah, I agree.
So he's not bad, but yeah, he is pretty vanilla. Maybe I could see this working like Urion J. Mill as a one of. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, like I think it could have a home somewhere, but I don't see this card. Like, people aren't like clamoring to this thing,
Yep. Next up is Samurai. It's a 2 CP backup. When it enters the field, choose a fire forward, gets 2,000 power and brave to end a turn. And then for tap break, choose a fire forward, gets 2,000 power and brave until end of turn. And then you can only use this ability if you've received 5 points of damage or more.
I think the card's great. I think it's good at most stages of the game. Obviously, this is a mono fire superstar. I think it warrants a couple slots in a deck. I mean, it's a 2 CP backup, which is never bad, and it has an effect that you can use when you play it, or one that if you're kind of, we talked about this before, where Fire's problem is that when they're on the ropes, they don't really have much ways to mount an offense. I think this definitely helps them in that case.
Yep, I think it's a really solid 2 CP backup. It's good early, it's good late, it's good mid game. So it's pretty good. The only drawback, I guess, is that it's really just a mono fire card.
Yeah, it is limited to fire, which is unfortunate, but
yeah. But I think it's fine. I think that maybe that's why they could make it kind of strong, was to limit it to the element.
For sure.
Next up is Jekt. He's a 5 CP 9K Job Guardian. If you receive 4 points of damage or more, the cost required to play Jack is reduced by 4. And when he enters the field, if you have 2 points of damage more than your opponent, Jack deals your opponent 1 point of damage.
I still like this guy. I'm not nearly as high on him as when it was first spoiled, but I think he's good at all stages of the game, and he's great to pitch for CP early on. And again, much like Samurai, if you find yourself on the ropes, you've got yourself a body that is just severely overcurved, and there's a good chance he could deal your opponent a point of damage. I think the card's great. I think he's a good, like, solid 1 or 2 of in a lot of Fire decks or a lot of Fire X decks.
Yeah, I still like him a lot. I still think if the deck caters to him slightly, it doesn't even have to cater to him a lot. I think he's really strong. 1 CP, 9K, it's really good. It feels really good when you do it. Trust me, I've done it enough at this point already.
A lot. It feels fantastic.
Yeah, it feels really good. The only thing I kind of wish, and this might have made him too good, is that the point of damage he did maybe didn't trigger bursts. I don't know, though. Maybe that's too good. But it kind of feels bad, like, when you do this to try to mount a comeback, and then you hit, like, an Odin or something. Yeah, and then he just dies. Or something else on your board dies, you know. That feels pretty bad.
But one of the good things he does do is if, he does get that damage trigger, if you have Varuna on your side of the board, it does activate your Varunas, which is nice.
Yep. So I think he's good. I think he'll see play a pretty fair amount of it. And then I think if he continues to see play, it's going to depend on how good Fire ends up being. So.
Yep, I agree.
Next up is Summoner. It's a 3 CP 7K standard unit. When it enters the field, choose 1 board opponent controls. If the cost paid to play Summoner included Lightning CP, dull it.
We just play Amon instead. Keep on going.
Yeah, Amon's just a better card than this. It doesn't require you to have to pay your CP at all. Just spend the 1 more CP and play Amon. I guess if you're playing Pauper, Fire Lightning, sure, maybe.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, it's not great.
Yep.
Next up is Soul. He's a 2 CP Warrior of Light forward, 5K. If you control a Job Warrior Light forward other than Soul, he gains plus 2,000 power and haste.
Oh, this card's so good. Obviously, he's the, target number 1 with Aegis. So many times have I gone turn 1 or turn 2, Aegis Soul, and it just feels really good. I think the card, it's a very, very good 2-drop. Obviously, him being a Warrior of Light and him benefiting from Warriors of Light really puts him in that archetype. I think he's just a good, solid 2-drop all around. He's on curve, gets buffed, and he will always have that buff when the turn you play. So, I think solid card, just solid card.
Yeah, obviously he's better when you're playing a lot more Warriors of Light because he's always going to come in with those buffs. I think because I think Aegis is really good, I think this card is good by association.
No, I agree.
So even outside of Warrior Light decks, I think he's a fine play. Just because you're probably running Aegis in the decks that I'm talking about. And if that's the case, that's probably the best 1-2 punch you could ask for. You just play a 7K haste with Brave. That's a really good turn 1. So I think he's really good, and I think he's really good because Aegis is really good. So.
Yeah, I agree. He does feel good on boards where you have Light Warrior of Light and you just swing in with him, and it's like, cool. Not even 8Ks are going to kill him, which feels good.
Yep. Next up is Berserker. He's a 2 CP 8K standard unit. When he deals damage to your opponent or a forward, break Berserker.
I like this card. It's not a great card, but I think it does have some really niche utility options. I think if you're playing the Kyle McGinty Shock Trooper deck from last Opus, I think this card could have a home there. But otherwise, there's not much happening here.
Yeah, I think he's really just a blocker. Like, he strikes me as more of a defensive card. So maybe if you're running a deck with the 4 CP Phoenix in it, it's not bad. Because you always want him to be trading up if possible, which shouldn't be hard to do since he's an 8K for 2. The question becomes, again, is he worth a card slot to do that? And that's when I don't know. Is the juice worth the squeeze, as we like saying around here? Yeah, because, he's really limited in what he does, and he's not an offensive card at all. And to make him offensive, you have to run extra cards and use them on him, which doesn't feel good. So, yeah, I don't think he's great, but he does have some usefulness. Yeah, I agree. Next up is Balgavin. He's a 5 CP 8K. When he enters the field, choose a forward opponent controls. If the cost to pay Valgaven was only paid with fire CP, deal it 7k. And then he has an S for S2 fire tap. Choose a forward of any element except fire, deal it 10,000 damage.
Nice. So this is the first in this cycle of generals that we're getting from Legends, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. I think he does. I think him doing 7K on entry is a really solid effect. He's a really solid size body. Now, granted, 5 drops are a crowded space for fire right now. I don't really count Jet in that space because ideally you're paying him for 1. And then you've got Zonde is still a thing. I'm personally still a big fan of Edgar, but I do like this card. I think he has a home in fire, mono fire, obviously because he is restricted to getting his ability off by paying only fire CP.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, you ideally want to just play this guy in a mono fire deck.
Yep.
He does something immediately, which is something that Zonde doesn't do, unless you can give Zonde haste. So that's a positive. Also, if you're running extra copies, he has an S, so that's also a positive. I do feel like the 7K, though, sometimes doesn't hit as hard as you want it to. Like, you're paying 5, and a lot of times it doesn't feel like he's killing things. I think he's good. I don't know how much you're going to see of him, but, like, I think he's solid value card. And if he's killing something, he's really good. Like, if he's coming in and he's killing something, he's really good. So,
I agree.
Next up is Fang. She's a 3CP 7K. Category 13. If you control 2 or more Category 13 characters, she has First Strike. If you control 4 or more, she has Haste. If you have 6 or more, she has plus 3,000 power.
I actually really, really like this card. Obviously, in title, I think she's just an ungodly ass beater. But I think in constructed, I think if you're running a Fire Ice deck with a heavy emphasis on 13, like if you just have her and LeBrow out, or her and Snow out, or I don't know, her and Saz, like because she counts herself towards her numbers. So I feel like one of the best case scenarios is you have her out with LeBrow, and now she's a 8K with First Strike, which is good. That's really, really solid. I like this card. I can't wait to like mess around with that a little.
Yeah, I think she's solid. Obviously, she's a home run in title.
Oh yeah,
you just slam her in. She's gonna have everything.
Yep.
The rest of it's gonna come down to how good is a 13 deck outside of title, and like you said, you could just play LeBrow, so she might even be worth it with just that. But I think if you could come in with 4, I mean, she's totally worth it. I don't know how viable that is in standard, but we'll see. But I do like her.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up is Bomb. It's a 2CP monster. So for put Bomb in the break zone, choose a forward, deal it 3k, and then deal 2,000 damage to all forward opponent controls. And then you can discard Bomb to choose a forward and deal it 2,000 damage. You can only use this ability if Bomb is in your hand.
I'm starting to come around on this card. I think this card is really sneaky, and I think you're going to see it more in like those real pingy fire decks. Again, I think this card kind of runs the same problem that the other, I can't remember the other monster's name now because I have Begalvin stuck in my head.
The Warmech?
Varuna.
Oh, Varuna.
I think suffer the same problem that Varuna has, that you just won't know where to put him.
Yep, I agree with that. I think this guy does some good things. Like, obviously, really what he's doing is he does 5k to something and then 2k to everything else, kind of. Obviously, if Min was on the board, that's not what he does, but that's basically what he does. And then the fact that you can discard him for 2k is okay. But yeah, I think you're kind of right. Like, I don't really know where you find room for him. That's my issue. Like, card slot's going to be the hard thing. Maybe if you're going like super pingy, maybe like with Rangers or something, he might be good. But I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to fit him in a deck. Next up is Meath. It's a 2CP backup. When he enters the field, you may discard a card. If you do, search for 1 forward of the same cost as the discarded card and add it to your hand.
This one's up there as one of my favorite cards in the set. This is a great tutor for Fire and or Fire X decks. This is very much more akin to like an old verse system tutor where there is kind of a cost he paid once he comes into play. But one of the things that he does is he allows you to kind of ungum your hand. Like, say you're all clunked up with like a couple of light or dark cards, you can play him, discard one of those to get a forward you need matching the number. I think the card's really, really good, and he's really good in a lot of points. Let you get the forward you need when you need it. For he costs 2, so you can always play him with no value, which feels bad, but you can still do it early. But just being able to kind of get what you want feels good.
Yeah, I think it also like makes for creative deck building choices too, because you want to make sure you have costs associated with the cards you're playing. Obviously, yeah, like you said, the best use for him is like now you can play a good amount of light and dark cards maybe, and now you can pitch them to this to get stuff back, and then there's a backup that we'll talk about later that can get rid of this to let you play him again possibly. I'm high on this card too, and I think maybe it's the versus player in me that makes me high on him. But I think he's really good.
Yeah, I do too.
So next up is Lon. He's a 4 CP AK. If you control a card named Rain, he gains 1,000 power. When he deals damage to your opponent or a forward, choose one forward. You may pay 3 fire, 1 colorless. If you do, deal it damage equal to Lon's power.
See, man, this is a card that I really, really like. Like, it's one of those cards that it reads so well. It reads so powerful. And I think it is a very powerful card. I just the 3 fire and 1 colorless makes it kind of I guess narrow in your deck construction. Like you have to have those 3 fire backup, or at least 1, and have a fire card to pitch. He does get expensive over time, but as we've seen, if he gets to a point where he can get going and you don't have to worry about playing another forward, he can just wipe your board. So I think he's a very powerful card, but I think his ability can get a little expensive and be a little taxing over time. So I don't know how I feel about this card yet. I like it. I want to like it, but I just don't know where I play it or where it sees play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he's a late game card, where you're already set up and you can afford to pay that. Obviously, he's better in mono fire because then the 3 fire is not as big a deal. But yeah, fire XX is going to be hard to consistently pay for this. He has a tutor, which also powers him up, and then his card text also gets powered up from the tutor, so that's nice if you want to run that. But that costs 4. It is a burst, which is great.
Sure.
In mono fire, he's always going to be a 9k, which will basically allow him to kill anything whenever it makes it difficult for your opponent to decide whether or not they want to block or not.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think he's a 3 of though. Like I don't think you're just going to jam 3 of this guy in a deck. I think 1 or 2 is my guess, and I think you want to play him late game.
Sure.
But I could be wrong. He could be just insane. He definitely has the potential.
That's the thing. And I think he does have the potential. Like he reads very, very well, and like when you read him, you're like, man, this guy could just take over a game. But then you start thinking of like the cost, and you're like, man, that's expensive.
Yeah, you're gonna run a CP at some point is the thing. But yeah, like I said, if you could play him late where you already got 4 backups, they have to deal with him like immediately.
Right.
So, next up is Latov. He's a 5 CP backup. When he enters the field, choose one card named Chelinka or Yuri in your break zone and play it onto the field.
I think the cards that he gets back onto the field, specifically Yuri, which I know that review will come later down the line. I think that alone warrants a spot for, like, if you're obviously doing mono fire and you're playing Yuri, he belongs in there. If you're playing Windfire with Yuri and Chelinka, he belongs in there. I think the card is as good as the cards that he gets.
Yeah, I agree. 5 is a bit steep, but it is playing it directly on the field, which is great.
Yeah.
I think, if you're playing a fire deck with Yuri in it, it probably warrants at least like a 1 of maybe.
Oh, I agree.
And then, if you're playing Windfire with Yuri and Chelinka, you're probably running 2 of this. Maybe 3, but 3 might be excessive. So.
Yep.
Next up is Lulu. It's a 2 CP backup, Job Guardian. When she enters the field, choose one forward. You may put a backup other than Lulu into the break zone. If you do, deal it 7k.
Man, this is another card that I just 100% love because, we just talked about, the card before that you would run multiples of. Yeah, it costs 5, but the fact that on the next turn you can play Lulu, break that, and deal something 7k, and now that could open you up to play another one. Same thing with Meath, backup Vivi. Like Lulu lets you kind of refresh your backup line at the and do damage to something. I think the card is excellent.
Yeah, I like her a lot too. She's cheap. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that sucks is when you have to play her like early game with for no value. It feels kind of
Yeah.
bad. Um, but like I like her a lot. Yeah, she lets you break backups that you otherwise wouldn't be able to break unless you're running things like Furion or something like that. She's probably good with Furion too, to be honest, because then you
Well,
can
in
break
case you
her.
have to play early and you trap yourself, you
Yep,
know.
yep. So yeah, I think she's gonna see a good amount of play. I think she's just really good. So, and 7K is a good amount of damage for what she does. So
I agree. I agree with that.
next up is Rain. She's a 3 CP EX burst forward, 6K. When she enters the field, you may search for one category Waff monster added to your hand, and the category Waff monsters you control gain 1,000 power.
Oh well, she plays very well with Frit, and she essentially is a one CP or one CP 6K, which that's good value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't. Obviously, she's very dependent on the WAF monsters, but I think if you're playing Fire and you're playing Land, I think you play the old Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd like to see this card get its due, but I don't know what to do with it, honestly.
Yeah, I think she's okay, but again, she needs other cards to be good.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, if you're getting a card, she's a 1 CP 6K EX burst, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in order for Frit to be good, Ifrit has to be good. So it's like this like chain. So Ifrit
Yep.
has to be good for Frit to be good, and then Frit has to be good for Rain to be good. And if all that falls into line, then she's a good card.
But then it turns out there's no Carol in HR.
That's true, yeah. And then yeah, maybe like Fire Ice but Blizz or something. I don't know, but
Sure.
yeah, I think she does a good thing. I just don't know if it's good right now.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at with her.
Yeah. Next up is first the starter cards. It's a 2 CP Warrior of Light. He's a job Warrior of Light. He's a 5K. If you control 4 more forwards, he gains haste. And when he enters the field, all forwards you control gain plus 2,000 power until end of turn.
I like this card. He's a 2-drop, so he plays very well with Aegis. So now you're looking at another bigger body with haste and brave. He's another Golbez option because he won't get the buff to everybody, but he will get haste. And the fact that he is on job as Warrior of Light. The only thing that sucks is his name is Warrior of Light, so that's unfortunate. But also he's good in that deck too because he could always be S fodder for the Light Warrior of Light. I think he's a good card.
Yep. Yeah, I think he sees less play in that deck, but yeah, you're right. I mean, he's still S fodder at worst case scenario. He's S fodder. I think if you're playing a deck that has Aegis, Godot, and Baby Phoenix, this card's crazy good.
I agree.
Just on like 4 CP, now you can bring a blocker in that's going to be a 7K, and he's going to buff everything else by 2K. And then, or you could bring him in on offense while you have 3 4s, and now he's your 4th forward, and he has haste.
Yeah.
That seems okay. I think he's a really good card in the right deck. And so if like that 2 CP kind of fire deck is good, then I think he's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
And then lastly is Furion. He's a 2 CP EX burst, forward, 2K, job warrior. When he enters the field, choose one forward opponent controls, deal it 2,000 damage for each forward you control, up to 3 forwards.
I actually like this card too. Again, he's a 2-drop, so he immediately plays well with Aegis. He's an EX burst. Fact that he's a warrior means he's searchable by Hugh. He plays well with Ward. I think he's a good card. I think he's a fantastic card. I just don't know. Obviously, he's going to go in a deck where there's a lot of ping. I don't know. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think he fits similar into the same deck I was describing with Warrior Light. Baby Phoenix obviously is there.
Great in that deck with that deck card.
Yeah, and probably Aegis is there too, because then you could like go Aegis into a forward and then pay 2 more CP to play this, and then he's dealing his full 6K. War Mech seems okay with him because War Mech allows him to hit 8K. But yeah, I think he's solid. I don't know if he's going to be some kind of instant 3 of. The EX burst helps too.
I agree.
So I think he's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall Fire's really, really solid. A lot of really good cards. I think Aegis is the big standout of this crop, and I just can't wait to play with more of these cards.
Yep. Yeah, I think they got some good things. Whether or not it's going to put them over the top, I'll wait and see. But I'm definitely going to be trying a lot of decks with Fire in them for sure.
Oh yeah, I already have been, man. I've been ever since I saw all the as these fire cards were coming out, I was just testing them, thinking of ideas for them and stuff like that. So yeah, I think fire's off to a good start.
Yep. So yeah, that's it for this review. Catch you guys next time with Ice. See you later.
Oh yeah.